Recently, my car got wrecked, and the damage is quite bad, and I'm pretty confident that it'll be totaled and possibly taken away unless I can figure out how to fix it myself, even though I have no prior experience with any sort of bodywork. So in this episode, I'm going to figure out if I even have the ability to do that, and what the salvage process would look like, or if I'm just going to have to give up the car that I put so much time, labor, and love into restoring for the past year.
This is a large project. Just be aware of what you're jumping into here.
It's gonna be hard, bro. It's gonna be a long time.
I don't feel like I have any good advice to give you in this situation because it seems like you're trying really hard to fit a square peg into a round hole.
And so the first thing I want to do is get this car on an alignment rack. So far as I can tell, the only damage is the passenger side door and rear quarter panel, but I kind of can't tell if my eyes are playing tricks on me, and if that back right wheel might have taken some damage and might slightly be bent inwards. And so before I make any assumptions about how easily I can fix the car, I want to make sure there's no actual mechanical damage and that all the damage is just cosmetic. And so that's why right now I'm driving over to the alignment shop to get this on an alignment rack to confirm if the wheels are actually straight and that there's no suspension damage. So, it turns out the car is straight, which I'm not actually surprised by at all. It was quite a low speed impact. The only reason the damage looked so bad is because it was more of like a sheer force on the car, where instead of the other car smashing into mine, my car absorbing the impact, it was more that the car slowly backed into me, and at some point their metal rear bumper reinforcement bar was kind of pierced into my car, and my car was still moving at like 10-15 miles an hour. That's why it shredded the side. So that officially means that to repair this car, I now know that it only needs a door, a new rear quarter, and paint. The next thing I need to figure out is if I can even fix it, because I am pretty confident this is going to be totaled. This car is probably only worth 6 to 7K, and I got a couple of quotes for the repair of this car which are about 5K. So the interesting part about this though is that I just learned how to MIG weld a few months ago, which is quite convenient timing. I mean, obviously I'm not the best at it, but I spent several months taking classes and making small projects. So I have the basic skills to like grind and weld and work on that. I know it won't be perfect. Before you comment, I know if I repair this, it won't be perfect, because otherwise it doesn't really make financial sense to like spend 5K repairing a totaled like 6-7K car. So if I want this car repaired, I'm gonna probably have to do it myself. So the situation basically is that I am really overconfident, and having this YouTube channel doesn't really help, because every time I know I have a challenge to work on, I know that the story for these videos will be even more interesting, and that makes me want to do crazy stuff like try and repair a rear quarter by myself. So I'm going to try and actually get some advice from some people who've actually done this or done similar stuff to see what they think about the effort required. And then I'm also going to see if I can get advice on what the salvage process would look like, because I'm not familiar with it, and I know it will be totaled, and I'll probably have to buy it back as a salvage title. And I don't know what that process looks like, and I don't know if it'll be a huge hassle, which could impact my decision to even file insurance or not. So yeah. But first, to give you a little bit of context, the reason that this repair is so difficult is because that rear fender, the rear quarter panel, is not bolted on like most body panels of a car, but it's welded on. So in order to repair that damage, I would have to cut the panel out and then weld a piece in before actually painting the car. And that's why I want to get some advice to see how realistic that doing that repair myself really is.
This is a large project. Just be aware of what you're jumping into here.
Yeah.
The only way this makes sense is if you really cannot get out of the emotional connection you have to that car.
It's gonna be hard, bro. It's gonna be a long time.
That I understand.
But I think if you do it, if you take your time and you actually because you do you're the perfect person to do this kind of shit. Just by watching your videos and stuff, you kind of have this drive to get shit done, and make sure that you cut, start cutting very small.
Yeah.
Because you can always come more. I think you're like the perfect candidate to get this project done, and I'm excited for it too. Because like it's not. I don't have a lot of friends that like to do shit like that on their own anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fun that like
So-
somebody wants to work on something.
Dude,
Your idea of video is just like Prison Mike right now.
Dude, that's the first thing I thought about as soon as this happened. I was like, no, this is gonna be amazing. And so, after talking to Matt and Rodrigo, I realized that this is actually kind of doable. I thought they would tell me that I'm crazy and it's not possible, which they kind of did. At least they gave me like a good, realistic warning. But at the same time, they were able to also confirm to me that it is possible if I'm truly committed and willing enough. So that was kind of cool. I mean, they know more about this than me, and if they told me it was a no-go, I would have just stopped right there. So that gave me a little bit of confidence. Next up, I need to kind of get an idea of what the salvage process would look like. So I called up an insurance agent I know to see if he has any insight into that process.
Car, and you can go to a body shop to do any fix, and then body shop will give you a report called mechanical report. You can still buy insurance under one condition, that this car can only buy liability only insurance.
Oh.
Which means
And so what I basically learned from him is that to get a salvage car street legal again, you need to get a mechanic report from a body shop apparently to confirm the repairs that were done, which doesn't really work for me because I would have to do it myself. So I'm going to do a bit more research on what that looks like and probably call the DMV, which is probably actually the place I should start. But I'm starting to get the idea that the salvage process might actually be the exact amount of hassle that I'm expecting it to be. So we'll see about that. I'm going to do more research on that. But finally, I kind of wanted to see if there's anything else I could do about the car, because I'm really trying not to have it totaled out. So I also called up a personal injury lawyer that I know to just get his thoughts on it as kind of a friend on what I might be able to do.
I wouldn't signal too much that you want to keep it. So basically, the first thing you want to do is establish the fair market value, and there's really, I mean, honestly, I don't know anyone who's ever litigated that issue before, because it's going to be more difficult and more complicated with claims like this, where it's not just a regular car where you're taking something that's kind of a
That's
classic.
my difficult thing, is I'm considering just not going through insurance at all, because it's not that expensive, and I just don't want the car taken away, and I don't want to have to deal with the salvage title.
Then you can make an argument that you're not totaling the car, you just want that you'll settle for what it would cost to repair it. And so they're going to say, well, we think once we got in there and did additional repairs, it would be worth, it's going to be more than that. So I'm willing to settle for this amount right here. Overwhelming majority of my clients don't want to keep the car. I think I've had maybe one or two in my entire career where they did.
So
I can tell you right now that just based on the information that you learned, you know far more about that than I ever will, because it's never come up on my cases. And I mean, with all due respect, I don't feel like I have any good advice to give you in this situation, because it seems like you're trying really hard to fit a square peg into a round hole, or vice versa.
that's the best way to describe my week.
The problem is I've never had a client in this particular situation.
Funny enough, his concluding thought is that he can't really give me that much helpful advice, because he's never really had a case where someone has tried to specifically go out of their way to keep the car. So I thought that was actually pretty funny. But I care more about keeping the car than anything else about the situation. So what I'm kind of learning is that it turns out that I'm kind of in a unique situation, since those aren't exactly the priorities of an average person when their car gets totaled. So that's been a little stressful to kind of figure out and navigate for myself. Okay, so I've kind of got enough information, and I think I'm going to try and attempt the repair myself, which is the only way that I can really keep this car, because otherwise it just doesn't make financial sense. So that brings me back to the last decision I need to make, which is, what am I going to do with insurance? The other driver is clearly at fault, and I obviously have the GoPro footage that you've seen. And the other driver has insurance, and I have their insurance, so I can file a claim on their insurance if I want. So if you remember from my first video where I shared the news about this wreck, I laid out 3 different kind of paths that can happen. The first is that I can file insurance and they'll pay out for the repair. But like I said then, I'm telling you now, it's not going to happen. The repairs are going to be too expensive. The second is that I file insurance and they total the car, in which case I would buy it back and have to figure out the salvage process. But there's a small chance they might not let me buy it back because they're not actually legally required to, which is a little bit of a fear I have. And the third option is I don't file insurance at all, just so that I know I can keep my car and I can try and skip all the hassle that's probably going to come with trying to get my car valued correctly, and the whole salvage process. And instead, I just eat the cost of repair out of pocket, fix it myself, and move on. Which doesn't make me feel good because I'm not being financially compensated for the damage. And so I've been doing a lot more research and thinking, and I realized I'm just overthinking this. I think I just need to file insurance, see what happens, and try and buy it back as salvage and repair it myself. So I decided that's what I'm gonna do. And oh man, I really hope it doesn't get totaled.
Unfortunately, due to the extent of the damage, the vehicle has a total loss. Descend.
Going away.